You need to be taking a shot on Patriots rookie wide receiver Jaylen Polk with the last pick in your fantasy draft. I tell you why on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I want to thank all of our listeners and give a big warm welcome to any of our new listeners that are joining us to help prepare for their fantasy drafts that are coming up in just mere weeks. So excited for draft season. For those of you who are new, I am one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer, and I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com. Welcome to the show. If you're new, excited to keep bringing you ways to dominate your fantasy football drafts here 2024. And this is going to be fun, Michelle. We're going to talk deep sleepers. We should have a blast on the show, and just get your notepad out. These are some guys you want to sticky note to your rankings this year.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about sleepers that could contribute, right? We're talking about guys that we think have a high ceiling. They can end, if it's a running back or wide receiver, they can end as a top 24 guy. Or if we're going to discuss a quarterback or tight end, they can end as a top 10, 12 guy. So we're giving you players that we think could really help you win your championships this year. Before we get into those guys, I want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. First sleeper off the bat. Give me your guy, Vinny. Who are you looking forward to take at the end of your drafts this year?
Yeah, I'm going with JK Dobbins. And look, he's a hard guy to trust because he's had a lot of injuries, but he is the lead back of a very familiar offense to him, Greg Roman. Ravens offense going to the Chargers. This is going to be a run-heavy team, and not just a run-heavy team, which is fine, but also a team that's going to be effective running the ball. Their offensive line is looking great here with Rashawn Slater. Now Zion Johnson playing well as a power blocker. You also have Joe Alt, their right tackle. So very good offensive line to get this done. They kind of improved their interior blocking at tight end as well, sneakily, with a couple of veterans there. So when you look at this situation, the Chargers are going to be a run-heavy team. This was a team that threw 62% of the time. I think it's going to drop to, you'll think it's not much, but 55% of the time. Now, this doesn't seem like a lot when you look at those percentages, but it's a lot more work for the running backs, a lot more ways to score for the running backs. So I look at J.K. Dobbins. Look, the only thing that has held this guy back is health. Now, they've been very careful with him here. They're not rushing him back. He should be ready, however, for week one. And the Chargers are going to definitely run the ball a lot more this year. That's going to be their identity. Justin Herbert's hurting. They're not going to force him to run too much, right, with his situation. So this team should be very effective. And Justin Herbert is scary enough, right? I know his receivers are different, but you got to be worried about him throwing downfield. So that's going to keep defenses honest, open things up. They can go with Disley and Hurst at tight end to get some extra blocking there. So I really like the upside of this running game. And it's interesting that not only did they just import J.K. Dobbins from the Ravens, they got Gus Edwards. So they're trying to recreate the Ravens. And what are the Ravens? The best rushing team in the NFL. So we like Derrick Henry a lot, but we also want to chase this offense as well that is the current Greg Roman offense. So I'm excited here for Dobbins. Look, it's a swing for the fences, but right now, Michelle, he's at RB 43 to 49. He has a wide range there, anywhere from 132, 153 overall. His ADP is actually higher than his ranking at 150, 11th to 13th round. I mean, might as well swing for the fences here because you could get an RB1 in his offense.
Yeah, somebody has to carry this workload, and it's not like we've ever been so amazed by Gus Edwards, right? And when Dobbins and Edwards were teammates and Dobbins was healthy, it was always Dobbins that was the lead. It's not like they wanted Gus Edwards to be the lead back. It all depends on health. Now, I will say I'm very, very big on taking wide receivers late. Those are the guys I want to take a swing on. You'll see that in this episode. I do choose 3 wide receivers. Spoiler alert here. But if you are going to take a running back, take one that's falling just because maybe health or, that kind of concern that we've seen be good in the past, that has a clear cut path to be the starter for what should be a pretty good offense this year. So I like that pick by you. Now, I'll say, as we get closer and closer to the season, I am getting incredibly high on Patriots rookie wide receiver Jaylen Polk. Now, he's was drafted in the NFL draft, second round pick, number 37 overall. I mean, that's extremely early draft pick to use on a wide receiver. And it's because he was really, really good. Now, he did share the field with Rome Odunze, who went number 9 overall, and he was behind him in the receiving yards and receiving touchdowns, but still had a fantastic year. He averages a ton of yards per reception at school over the last 3 years, averaged 17.1 yards per reception. That was fourth most in the FBS in that span. He had 12 receptions of 30-plus yards last season. That was the sixth most in the Power 5 last year. Like, he can make those big plays, but also it has been all rave reviews for Jaylen Polk in training camp. The latest report is that Polk has been the best wide receiver in camp and has become a go-to option for all quarterbacks so far. That makes sense because he's playing with nobody, right? I mean, Kendrick Bourne is still coming off the torn Achilles and trying to recover from that. He's really the only good option on their team. Demario Douglas is just a dude. Like, he had to get targets last year. He wasn't very good with them. There's nobody else on this team. I fully expect him to be the starter. I know he wasn't in preseason week 1. I don't care. Like, he's going to be the starter. And I think he has by far the best chance of dominating on that offense in targets, especially. And we've seen this happen before where these guys get drafted early in the NFL draft, and then we don't want to take them in fantasy because we're worried about their quarterback or their situation. I mean, Justin Jefferson during his rookie season was going at number 131 overall in ADP. Brandon Ayuk that same year entering the year at 198 ADP. Both of those guys were very good. Well, obviously Jefferson was amazing his rookie season. Ayuk was very good. AJ Brown, because we're so scared of the Titans, right? And that situation. Oh my God, their passing game so bad. He had an ADP of 210 overall entering his 2019 rookie season. McLaurin wasn't even being thought of. He also had a good rookie season. Like, you can go down this list and these guys just overthought of, right? Even though they're drafted early in drafts, they're just not being looked at in fantasy. I think you need to start looking at Jaylen Polk, and I think you need to take him with your last pick.
Yeah, I mean, this Patriots situation was wide open going into camp. Now, Juju Smith-Schuster's out of the equation. They've released him. So one bit the dust here. You look at Demario Douglas, he's the little slot guy that you put in extended handoffs, those type of short passes. So that's his role. Now, Jaylen Polk's role in Washington, you mentioned Rome Odunze, but there was also Jalen McMillan. So clearly they had 3 guys that they could trust there. Odunze really came on strong in his final year, but Polk was the main man for quite a while there. McMillan was the slot guy. So what do you like about this is they're kind of settling into the roles. It looks like Bourne by default is probably going to be outside in one of the starting spots. Polk is headed there. They do like Javon Baker too, the other rookie, but that could be more trouble for Douglas going forward, right? So I think when you look at this, they're going to have to throw at some point, right? Their defenses may not be as dominant as we think it is. They're not going to just stick with the running game. And if it's Jacoby Brissett out there, he knows he has to push the ball downfield. And all signs are pointing to Jacoby Brissett starting. Drake May doesn't seem ready. Hey, if it's Joe Milton, we might be excited at some point because he can actually push the ball downfield. But May also has a big arm, so does Brissett. So they can all get the field stretched with this guy. He's a big play guy. So I think he's got a shot at anything, at this offense. It's wide open. And again, Bourne, come on, we're not going for Kendrick Bourne again. He's just so boring to have on the roster. He's just like a basic new version of Jacoby Myers in this Patriots offense. Myers is actually better away from this Patriots offense. So now we look at this Polk in this version, I think, of what they're doing. Jacoby Brissett having some experience here with Alex Med-Pelt. I think Brissett Polk could be a nice sneaky combination fantasy all year long while it happens. In Polk is going to keep it up, I think, if they go to Drake May or even Joe Milton at any point this season.
Yeah, this take is really hoping that Jacoby Brissett wins the job, right? And I fully expect him to. And I fully expect him to keep the job for the majority of the year. Maybe if they have a bad record, then Drake May comes in. But I expect Jacoby Brissett to be the starting quarterback of this team, and he can get it to Polk. Like, he's gonna target him, and it's gonna be great. I'm really excited for it, honestly. Like, I have my hopes up high here. He could be a league winner this year. We're gonna get into our second sleeper. Not guys I'm as excited about Jaylen Polk, but I still am interested in taking them late, and I think they have very high upside. this year. We'll get into that right after we hear from one of our sponsors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only to U.S. customers. You have another running back that you like to take late. So we kind of are going with opposite strategies here, right? I'm heavy on the wide receivers late. You like taking chances on finding another running back you can start in your lineup. Who is your second sleeper?
Yeah, these are what I like to call lottery tickets, right? These are speculations in backfields that have a little bit of uncertainty. And if you hit on the right guy in these situations, you can go off and get that production. Now, I have another guy in that same range. He's at RB 44-45 as JK Dobbins, going actually a little bit earlier in a lot of drafts. His ADP is 141 and his ranking is 141. So he's kind of lined up there. He's more of a middle 12th round where I think there's a bigger range with Dobbins based on injury 11 to 13. It is Rico Dowdle of the Cowboys. Now, I know they brought back Ezekiel Elliott, right? But they were very slow to address the situation without Tony Pollard. Maybe what we learned a little bit about Tony Pollard with the Titans, maybe they had good reason to move on, right? Where he was not worth bringing back. So they didn't address this in the draft. They're going along. Then all of a sudden, okay, I guess we'll give Ezekiel Elliott a call and see if he wants to come back here to Dallas. Well, part of that is I think they do like Rico Dowdle. And again, I don't trust Ezekiel Elliott to consistently be what he was. I mean, he has had a lot of volume, even had some volume last year in New England. This guy has been pounded into the ground by the Cowboys the first time. He's not going to have too much left. Like, I think he's good, and he does a lot of little things well, and that's why they want him, because he pass protects well and can come through in the red zone. But Rico Dowdle, they've liked for a while. They've hung on to this guy for quite a bit. Look, there's nothing spectacular about his game, but we know this Cowboys offense, it's the highest scoring, exciting offense in the league. So someone's going to have to score some touchdowns here, make some big plays. Why not Rico Dowdle? I mean, I don't know if they're going to just put up a committee, but remember, Pollard and Elliott were pretty effective just a few years ago. So they can turn this committee into something very good here. And again, they're going to have some form of running game here, right? They're going to open up the passing game. They're going to have some running lanes to go through. Their offensive line has been revamped a little bit. So I do like this situation here for Dowdle. And he's one of the better lottery tickets you can have because it's a high upside offense, potential big role, and you just go with that. And again, these guys are so cheap on the board that you take a big swing, and that's what we're looking for, big swings that can finish in the top 24 at their position. I think Dowdle has that potential.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if once they get into the season, the Cowboys being like if they just go with comfortability with Ezekiel Elliott, like they know he can pass protect. They probably feel safer with him not fumbling the ball, right? Or just getting those couple yards they need. But it does seem like in camp, they're giving Rico Dowdle every chance to really be the starter here instead of Zeke. He's even getting goal line work like over Zeke. So that
Bingo.
becomes very, very interesting. Yeah. I like that pick by you. I'm going with a hurt wide receiver right now, and that's kind of disappointing. But I'm still going to stick with it. I would have been much more confident if it wasn't for the the ankle injury that he just dealt with this week. But it's wide receiver Josh Downs. He's going in the 13th round, and I expect that to only drop now that he has a high ankle sprain. He could be back by the start of week 1 if it's a 4-week injury, but if it's that 6-week injury, he might miss the first couple of games. I'm still going with him, though. I still would like to take him very late in my drafts because he was starting to break out last year before his knee injury. So maybe we're talking about a guy here who's going to deal with injuries throughout his career, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But he got hurt in week 9, didn't do much the rest of the season. But prior to that week 9, I mean, he was starting to break out with 97 yards, 125 yards, 72 yards, 2 touchdowns in there in the 4 games prior to that injury. They're really starting to lean on him. Camp reports have been glowing. It seems like he's really doing great, entering his second season. He was a third-round pick last year, put up 771 receiving yards with a pretty below average second half of the season. But I just want to go through this list. This is the guys that have been drafted in the third round that had at least 750 receiving yards in the rookie season. It was Josh Downs, Terry McLaurin, Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen, T.Y. Hilton, and Mike Wallace. And it's not like those guys I listed destroyed the 750 or 771 yards that Josh Downs had. Like Cooper Kupp had 869. Mike Wallace had 756. Hilton had 861. Only really Keenan Allen had the over 1,000 receiving yards here. So I just think we're like overlooking what he did last year. I'm not worried about A.D. Mitchell joining this team. I don't think he's very good. And I think Josh Downs was ready for a huge role this year. Hopefully he still has it when he gets back from injury and he can be good and fresh. But that's my only worry is the injury. Besides that, I'm still happy to take him late in my drafts.
Yeah, this is one of the preseason games I was watching closely, the Colts Broncos, and Joe Flacco came in and he was with A.D. Mitchell. Michael Pittman did start and was out there. So I think he's going to be a big part of this offense with Pittman because they kind of have defaulted to Alec Pierce being the outside. But, I mean, that's because we have not seen Mitchell come through. He's had a bit of a rough camp here. So Mitchell is downgraded for sure. And we saw the tight ends. As much as we like Kyle and Granson, they're not quitting Mo Alley-Cox. They're not stopping to use Jelani Woods, right? He's come back his season. They were like, again, back in their old tight end committee, reared its ugly head immediately in that game with Anthony Richardson. So those guys are all going to negate each other. They need somebody as a number two. And I know it's a little bit loose, but Shane Steichen with Anthony Richardson, you could say parallel Jalen Hurts, right? You got the big, strong receiver there in Brown, A.J. Brown. You got Michael Pittman, the big, strong receiver, can go up and get the ball. Then you have that speedy, quick route runner type guy who can work the slot when you want, and that was Devonta Smith. So do we get this being a poor man's version of Brown and Smith, but Pittman having a little bit of upside? And if that's the case, then Down should be in line for some good production here. So again, I don't like the rest of the way of this receiving core at all, the way it's going. And I think that also favors Downs here. And really, I think this is how it's going to go. You're going to have a lot of Pittman. You're going to have a lot of Jonathan Taylor, and then probably a lot of Downs. And everything else, I can't tell you. I think maybe Anthony Richardson's running is the next weapon on this team, but that's how it goes. I don't think you're going to have too many people involved in Downs. Just too good. He's too dynamic with the ball in the hands that they're not going to ignore him all over the field. So I'm looking forward. I want to see him make some plays. He's just spectacular when he gets the opportunity and he's healthy. So Colts just have to give him some time and trust him. Now, we'll get into one more, Michelle, wide receiver. Yeah, she's going 3 wide receivers. I'm going with a wide receiver finally in our last segment here. So we'll reveal our final deep sleepers right after this word. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And now, LinkedIn Jobs isn't just a job board. It's an essential tool for all small business. When you're hiring for a small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has a tool to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free to make sure your team is a winning team, successful. You find the right mix of candidates that become hires. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who are actually searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role in a new organization. In a given month, more than 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional only on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. That's why they're on their side. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Make sure that you're joining that group. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, Michelle. All right, let's just get to your last wide receiver here. I agree with you totally on this one. This might be your favorite sleeper of mine that I'm going after as well. I do like Downs and Polk, but this receiver I like a lot, and we might start to have some Derek Carr hate sinking in as well in New Orleans to help the situation.
Yeah. So mine is Rasheed Shahed entering his third season, only 25 years old. But you can get him in the 13th round right now. And it's because he hasn't broke out yet, right? Like last year, he was second on the Saints with 719 receiving yards. He did have 5 receiving touchdowns, which was tied for the most on the Saints with Chris Olave. But he played 200 fewer offensive snaps than Olave. And I expect those snaps to increase this year. They were increasing towards the end of last year, and we saw him, start to score some touchdowns as well during that span. They finally cut Michael Thomas. I mean, it was about time, so he's out of the way, and they didn't really do anything to replace him whatsoever. Juwan Johnson's hurt. Who knows when he's going to be back? Alvin Kamara is getting older. Like, this team needs weapons. They need weapons. And what I really like about this offense is they added Clint Kubiak as our new OC. He's coming from the Shanahan style offense where they know how to use these type of weapons. They know how to get guys open, and they also know how to use the middle of the field, right? If he follows the Shanahan system, they use the middle of the field. And if you can get Shahed the ball in the middle of the field with that speed and what he can do after the catch, like, forget about it. He's going to have a great season. And like, who's going to be the number 2 target on this team after Olave? It's not even like Olave is the type of guy that's going to get 160 targets. Like, he's going to be around the 130 range. There's a ton of targets to go around. And I just expect a really big 3rd-year jump for Shahed. Maybe I should have had him over Josh Downs because prior to the high ankle sprain, I would have said Downs. But now that we're worried about that, maybe you just go with Shahed in the 13th round instead. And I really do expect big things. And if you happen to be in a league that gives you like kick return, punt return, points for yards, then yeah, definitely make sure he's on your team.
Michelle, as a 49ers enthusiast, you also know that they use their receivers in interesting ways. And Brandon Ayuk is a big play threat. Deebo Samuel can get rushing touches. Rasheed Shahed can do that kind of stuff as well. He's a great field stretcher. He can be used on those end-around plays, reverses. He's got that type of speed. That's what really got him on the field, right, for the Saints, and it was a sleeper because he could do those things in the return game and kind of get into the open field and make big plays on top of being able to stretch the field just with pure speed. So I love Rasheed Shahed. I like him as a player quite a bit. Now, A.T. Perry has done a few things, but I forgot to see a lot more about A.T. Perry. And also Cedric Wilson was their other pick. No, we're not. I mean, he could not do anything with Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle as a third receiver. He's not going to do anything here with Chris Olave and Shahed. And I think you're right. Sneakily, the Juwan Johnson injury is a good development. And as much as we hate Derek Carr, as much as Saints fans are booing Derek Carr and want Spencer Rattler to come in, even though he's a third stringer and still look not great, we want Derek Carr on the field because there was something between him and Rasheed Shahed. There was something going on. Now, I'm not saying Spencer Rattler couldn't reheat that, but do we really want a rookie late round pick, six-rounder?
It needs to be Carr.
No, we need Derek Carr. I mean, we don't want Derek Carr for reality. We want Derek Carr in fantasy, though. I mean, we definitely think that he has to be
not on our fantasy teams, but we want him to be helping our fantasy players.
He's a facilitator, just like we talk about with the Vikings and Raiders making the right decision. Don't overthink this. Carr is going to be the starter, and Clint Kubiak, that 49ers connection, I think is going to be pretty huge for Rasheed Shahed. So I love all the things you're saying there, even if we have to put up with seeing Derek Carr's ugly plays. If he gets the ball to Shahed and Chris Olave, we don't care. That's it, right? We're not going to care about Carr doing anything else. A few passes at Alvin Kamara, and we're set. We'll be happy with that for sure in fantasy. Now, my guy, I've liked him for a long time, and I know it hasn't really worked out for him in Chicago with the injuries, but I love some Darnell Mooney. This guy is really talented. Unfortunately, got a raw deal in Chicago. Remember how he's coming on the pre-DJ Moore days? Like, he was the guy, right, that they were trying to get involved. He just was miscast as kind of a number 1 type receiver once Allen Robinson kind of faded, right? That's not his role. His role is stretching the field, making big plays, and getting in position to work the middle of the field, run after the catch. He's good at that as well. So what do you have here? We talked about the third target. We said we're not totally buying Drake London eating up all the key wide receiver targets. We called him a potential bust. Kyle Pitts is there. But we have a big arm quarterback. When I say big arm. I mean, he's either one of them, Kirk Cousins or Michael Penix, right? They're going to push the ball downfield like we've not seen in a few years with Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heinicke and Marcus Mariota. They're going to take their shots. Mooney is a very good route runner when it comes to deep balls. He is going to make some plays in this offense. So I could see a situation where he gets like 850 yards, 7 TDs, somewhere like long bombs. But guess what? That gives us a wide receiver 3 potentially. And if that is kind of the place he can be, he's wide receiver 70, 203 ADP, 170 is his ranking. He's going into the 15th to 17th round. So you're not investing anything. If he doesn't do anything and they pivot, then you're just going to cut him, right? But I think he has high upside in this offense as a third target. Again, another offense, like I said, the Chargers are going to run a lot more than they pass. The Falcons are going to pass a lot more than we're used to, right? So you have Kirk Cousins in there, more volume, more targets to go around. They need someone to merge with London and Pitts. This is the guy. I really like Darnell Mooney in this offense, and he's had a great camp so far as well.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Kirk Cousins can easily make sure 2 wide receivers are top 24, right? Like, it doesn't have to be just because Darnell Mooney had a good year. It doesn't mean Drake London doesn't. Like, he can support 2 top 24 wide receivers and also a tight end. He was going to do it last year with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson if it wasn't for the injury. And also, like, Drake London's not the type of guy that can get 180 targets like Justin Jefferson can. Like, you're just not going to feed him that way. If anything, Mooney has more of a similar skill set to Justin Jefferson and Drake London. No, obviously not nearly as talented, but just the route running skill set does lean more towards Jefferson than London's does. So he should get a lot of targets with Kirk Cousins. I don't expect him to be like a lot of yards per reception, but he's still, especially in PPR leagues, I think that's a really solid pick by you. I have this like weird vendetta about with Darnell Mooney because when he was becoming the wide receiver 1, he was going early in drafts, and I got a lot of hate for saying I was out on Darnell Mooney, like from Twitter, especially like back in the day on Twitter, people were real mean to me. So like I have this thing against Mooney, but you are right. He is going to be good in this offense. He's going to be a top 3 target. And as long as he can get in the end zone 6-7 times, like there's a solid chance in PPR he could be a top 24, at worst top 30 wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm excited for him, and I think he'll get some big plays. He might be inconsistent in those big plays, and that's what's going to knock down his yards per reception, and they might throw him in some slot situations as well. I mean, I think Pitts will probably be the main guy there, but I think they could move Mooney around as well. This offense a little bit more easily than Drake London, who I think is a perimeter receiver. So I'm excited, Michelle. I want to draft all these guys now. Like, I want them on my team, but you guys should write all these names down. I hope you did. You're taking notes along the way. These are 6 guys you want to target in every end of every draft, right? Do it. And I think you'll love it. And we'll keep bringing more of these guys. That's what we do here, Michelle. We help you dominate your fantasy leagues. And these are some names that might be flying around under the radar in your leagues.
Yep. Get Jaylen Polk on your team, folks. Do it up. That is it for today's episode. Thank you to all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Everydayers. We'll be back tomorrow, possibly talking about a Brandon Ayuk trade. I don't know. Maybe it finally happens. Have a great night. Bye, y'all.